Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another Workforce Executive Council by CNBC live stream. Today, we are here to talk about HR benefits and workplace mental health for employees. And to have that conversation, I'm joined by Workforce Executive Council member Sean Woodroffe, who is TIAA's Chief Human Resources Officer. Sean, thank you so much for joining me to have this important conversation today. I really appreciate it.
A pleasure for me to so do, Brandon.
So I just said it there off the top. We're here to talk about the state of employees' mental well-being. And I think that leading up to this interview, we sort of had a conversation, and I was speaking with your team about exactly that, the state of mental well-being of employees and the work that you specifically have been doing within that conversation. I mean, can you, to kick things off here, maybe lay out a roadmap for the state of employee mental well-being and the conversations that you're having within TIAA?
Yeah, thank you, Brandon, and thanks for the opportunity. And the first thing I should clarify, when you say you, it's not me, Sean, but us as a company and the people team. Uh, Mental health, as we are all well aware, I would say 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, this would not have been a prominent topic of discussion at the workplace. We have all experienced, as a consequence of the pandemic, the increase in mental health challenges, whether it's with respect to anxieties. We know that school-age children are experiencing a greater level of anxieties, and that is largely attributed to this state of being isolated, not being able to be as socially engaged on an interactive person-to-person basis, as was the case prior to the pandemic. From a TIAA perspective, we start at a place of the clients that we obsessively serve. As a company that's 103, 102 years old, for us to be positioned to serve our clients' best interests, we recognize, Brandon, that we have to have an engaged workforce. That is a workforce that is emotionally committed to the success of TIAA. Engagement is directly related to the associate or to the employee experience. The extent to which I or you as an employee experiences the workforce, that then has the correlated effect of inspiring you to be your best at the workplace. So it starts with the employee experience. And you can't possibly have a admiring employee experience without talking about mental health. So from our perspective, mental health is critical to the employee experience, which is critical to employee engagement, which is critical to the success of our company. And we define success as our ability to serve our clients.
And I just want to drill in a little bit deeper for those who may not be as familiar with TIAA. Can you talk to us a little bit about the clients that you are serving, those populations, and who you're speaking about when you're saying that those are the populations that you're serving? I know you mentioned sort of that student demographic as well.
We founded in 1918 by Andrew Carnegie. We provide lifetime income or retirement income to our clients, otherwise referred to as participants. TIAA serves about 5 million clients that are employees of about 15,000 institutions. And the institutions that we serve, Brandon, are primarily in the not-for-profit education space. That's either in the higher ed space, or in some instances in the K through 12 space in the independent school sector. So think about it this way: we serve those that are dedicated and have committed their lives to serve others.
So I want to talk to you about that, because I think what you're describing and the work at TIAA resonates with, and I'm going to borrow your words, and when I say your, I mean TIAA's words, in the holistic approach, right? When I was looking through the benefits, specifically mental health benefits that are offered, there was this constant mention of a holistic approach. And even you mentioned it here. So can you maybe help us understand what exactly that means? Because I think that there are companies that would say that their benefits are, in fact, a holistic approach. So how do you define that in the work that you're doing at TIAA?
Right. And from a holistic approach, it starts with we have colleagues and associates that are dedicated not just to the benefit space, but specifically with respect in the mental health space, that their entire raison d'etre, so to speak, their job is around making sure that we have an environment to provide assistance and support from a mental health perspective. We refer to it as our Living Well program, and Living Well is both mental and physical. From time to time, we invite speakers on various topics ranging from resilience, burnout, trauma, happiness, and just the general mental health and well-being. We offer our associates and their dependents free access to mental health coaching and counseling, as well as access to our mental well-being platform. This year, as an example, we are developing a training for all of our people leaders on the topic of mental health. How do you support your respective teams? How do you recognize issues? And more importantly, how do you engage in conversations vis-a-vis care seeking? So that's an example, Brandon, of the comprehensive nature of our, as I mentioned before, our Living Well programs.
Yeah, I mean, I have sort of a list pulled up as well of some of the things that I sort of flagged as that holistic approach, right? Additional paid time off programs for childcare needs, you mentioned, daily childcare reimbursements, really taking that holistic approach. What I think also I would be curious to get your thoughts on, and maybe folks are wondering this too, right? They might say, wow, these are really fantastic programs, and either my company also offers them, or I wish my company offered something so specific to meet, my childcare needs, so that then my mental health could be freed up from being so stressed or so anxious at work, because I know that that part of my day is taken care of and provided for. I mean, the question is, do you find that these sort of specific engagements and these specific benefits within mental health benefits are the key to success, or is there an opportunity for a more broad sweeping benefit, right? Like a subscription service to a meditation app, say, that everyone in the company gets. What should be the priority here when it comes to companies?
Yeah, I think, and this might be perceived by some to be a cop-out answer. I think it is really all of the above, Brandon. It's both aspects that you mentioned, because for us as an employee, as an employer rather, we measure the efficacy of our programs on our we conduct employee surveys or associate engagement surveys about 3 or 4 times a year, and that's an opportunity for us to measure the efficacy of our programs. And we know from the results of our engagement surveys that the approach that we have taken, which is really a comprehensive approach in all aspects, has really made a difference in terms of how our associates feel engaged about the company. And I would also say we're also dealing not just with but maybe perhaps our own family issues, but there are also issues around advocacy and social justice. When you think for a moment about what occurred in May of 2020 with respect to the murder of George Floyd, that aroused a lot of anxieties, not only across the nation, but dare I say across the world. So for us, creating a forum and an opportunity for those discussions to take place in an environment that is welcoming and nurturing. For us, we also see that as a part of the wellness endeavor.
And I want to just take this moment to invite folks who are watching to definitely submit any questions that you have for myself or for Sean here in the chat as well, as we will be turning to those throughout. But Sean, I want to comment on something that
Brandon, if you see a question from my daughter Lauren, if it's a tough one, you don't have to ask it.
All right, Lauren, your name has been flagged. And so anyone monitoring the chat will now know. Well, I mean, great that she's tuning in to support as well. I wanted to turn back to what you had just said about the really just everything that's happened in the last 2 years. And off the top, you mentioned how more people are thinking about their mental health when it comes to their time in the workplace. And I mean, mental health benefits and prioritizing the needs of employees when it comes to their mental health has been something that's it's not a new concept, right? It's just maybe more people are opening their eyes and requesting that these benefits be front and center. How have you seen, again, in the last 2 years, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, George Floyd's murder, as you just mentioned, post, how have you seen the conversation change to be a little bit more broad sweeping when it comes to those mental health benefits?
Yeah. First, I would say I give a lot of credit to some of the athletes and celebrities that have helped us demystify this view that mental health is a subject that shouldn't be discussed. When you think about people like Simone Biles and people like Naomi Osaka, and of course we all know about Michael Phelps and how generous he has been in terms of disclosing the challenges that he encountered even during being a world-class Olympian. So I think all of those factors have really helped companies and employees feel more at ease in taking advantage of opportunities to focus on mental health issues. And we see, as a company, we see an increase in the counseling services that I mentioned previously. We see an increase in the employee assistance program. When we invite speakers on a variety of topics, we typically have, I would say, anywhere from 20 to 30% of our workforce that are participating in those programs. And so we have seen the increase in participation.
And I want to talk about the rising workforce a little bit too. I'm talking about those sort of like Gen Z, millennials, who may be some of those figures who you just mentioned, right? It resonates with. So this is according to the American Psychiatric Association. So 62% of millennials say that they are comfortable discussing their mental health struggles, compared to 32% of baby boomers, right? So 30% less. I mean, do you see that discrepancy within the workforce? And how are you encouraging employees across the age spectrum to really be open to having these conversations? I mean, is that even something that you're seeing? Are you seeing that discrepancy?
Yeah, it's funny, as you mentioned, that I'm blessed and privileged to have two Gen Zs, one who is a rising college junior and the other one who will be an incoming college freshman. And I can just see their comfort around being advocates for mental health, being aware of anxieties and how it impacts their respective communities and social circles. And as I think about myself, being their age, I am a proud baby boomer. I don't ever recall having that sense of awareness at 19, 20, 21 years old around mental health. And I would say that phenomena that I'm witnessing as a parent is also the case that we see at our company. And in some ways, Brandon, it is that generation that is sort of inspiring us, my generation, to really be more embracing around mental health. Mental health should be thought of in the same manner and fashion as if I had a broken foot or if I was dealing with some sort of a physical challenge. It should not in any way be considered to be something that's not talked about. And we have to create, employers have to create and engender environments where those discussions can take place, where employees can feel free to express those concerns.
Well, and I think that that's such an interesting conversation to have now that we're pushing past this point where people are saying, okay, hey, now we're in post-pandemic, right? So the assumption at some places might be, okay, we're through the worst of it, we can pull back on mental health resources. And we've seen, CNBC has reported on the fact that companies are, in fact, when they're looking at their budgets and where to cutting those benefits. I mean, what would you say to those companies? Because clearly you and TIAA are still so clearly prioritizing these benefits. Now for you seems like not the time to cut, but maybe to double down because people still need.
Well, you stole my answer. We do feel that it's the time to double down, and that statement that you made, Brandon, that I've heard post-pandemic. I don't know what post-pandemic means, because quite frankly, based on what we know from epidemiologists, the CDC and the WHO organization, the aspects of COVID will be with us for an unforeseen future, right? There'll be opportunities where, based on a particular variant, it'll spike up them, and there'll be times when it's spiking down, as is the case presently for the most part. So we made a decision. We as a company made a decision towards the end of 2021 that rather than focusing on COVID not ever being around and going back proverbially to normal, we made a decision is what is the best way for us to cope with, right? How do we responsibly operate in an environment where this will be a continuing medical phenomenon, so to speak, which is why we invested in providing molecular testing to all of our associates, which is why we have, for the most part, a workforce that is about 95% vaccinated. We are advocates based on certain circumstances for masking. We have a fairly robust contact tracing apparatus. So our view is, what is the best way to cope with and imagine the possibility that this will be with us for some time. So we feel that this is the right time for us to actually continue and enhance our focus on mental health. I'm sorry, that was a long-winded response.
No, I mean, there's so many things to follow up on in there. And the first that I will is you're saying we, right, the company. So I will start by asking, you've had support from your fellow executive leaders over at
Absolutely.
TIAA. So
absolutely.
I mean, can you talk us through some of that process, right? Because I think that maybe there are other CHROs who are tuning in now, or other employees who are saying, listen, I need to go and sort of make this pitch case to my CEO, to my CFO, to the E-suite, and say, this is a priority and here's why. I mean, how are you finding navigating those conversations with your own, colleagues?
Yeah, for us, it was simple. We believe, and if we believe, we have to practice that the most critical assets we have as a company are intellectual assets, are the people, and you've heard this term over and over before, the people who ride up and down in the elevator on a daily basis. So we feel that we have a ethical and a moral responsibility to ensure safety, health, both physical and mental wellness for our workforce. So that has always been an imperative for TIAA. So I wish I can sort of extol the virtues of my superior influencing skills, but I am sad to report that I don't have any great influencing skills because I didn't really need to. This is who we are as a company around preserving an environment where our employees' health and safety is paramount.
I do have a question from the audience, and I know you said that your daughter might ask one, and she did, in fact. So I actually am going to read you that question. So, because I honestly, it's a great question, and
Right.
I'll just read it out and let it speak for itself. So, how does TIAA find the balance of keeping an open conversation around mental health while not exhausting the topic? And I think it's so important because I think at this time, maybe mental health has become a buzzword, or it has become a way to attract employees. So how are we not exhausting this conversation?
Right. Yeah, I think we are a long way, Lauren and Brandon, from getting to the point of exhaustion. This is something that quite frankly, I think we need to continue to talk more about. And for us, it's less about the company talking about it over and over. It's more about creating a safe space, creating the environment where employees could feel free to have these sorts of discussions, where employees feel free around taking advantage of some of the opportunities that we provide around mental health help, so to speak, making sure that they have easy access to those services. And thank you for your question, Lauren.
Yes. And I'm also wondering how, again, you said it's mostly through employee surveys, but how have employees been able to really express what their needs are, right? I mean, how do you build that trust, that relationship with employees so that they know that when I come forward and say, I need X, Y, and Z, one, it's going to be listened to, but then two, that by my asking for this, it doesn't place some type of stigma or some type of negative association with myself as the employee.
Well, one way is we have an area of the benefits team that is 100% focused and committed to this. So our associates know that you can get resources through our intranet. Our associates know that they can ring this area that I mentioned directly and get resources. We're training our people leaders on how to invite and facilitate those discussions. And our associates also have the benefit of each other. Right. There's a survey company by the name of Gallup that has a survey on how to measure engagement. And one of the questions, do I have a best friend at work? So we all have a best friend at work. And that's also something that sometimes gets missed. But there are a lot of opportunities for associates to discuss this.
And you mentioned the associate level. I mean, we would not be having the full conversation if we weren't also talking about the mental health and the mental health benefits of executives as well. So I want to turn the script on you a little bit to maybe speak to your own personal experience over the last 2 years and how you, while you're managing all of these teams and making sure that everyone is taken care of, how you're also taking time to take care of yourself.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, we on the HR and associate communications function, we have something that we refer to as self-compassion days. Is we encourage each other to make sure that we're taking time just for ourselves to recharge. When I think about the vicissitudes of sentiments during the height of the pandemic, and you think about the anxiety of coming back into an office and getting back on a train or traveling again, it's just, for myself at least, recognizing that these anxieties are real and ensuring that I myself am taking the time necessary to just relax or reflect or have a self-compassion moment.
For me, that in the last 2 years has been sort of finding my love of running again. just like that self-care time, right? So it knows, I'm like, okay, when I'm running, I'm not going to be texting, hopefully. I'm not going to be on email, right? I mean, what's that for you? What's that for Sean? What's like the
Without question, it's cycling.
okay.
I'm an aspiring cyclist, though. I cycle a lot, and your point is brilliantly taken, Brandon. Which is when I'm on a bike, I can't receive or make a call. I'm not texting. I'm not emailing, and if you're sort of cycling 30 or 50 or 60 miles, that's 2, 3, or 4 hours of just really time where you're away from the sort of normal rigors and routines of the workplace. I'm only dealing with the physical rigor of cycling, but that is my happy place away from work.
Well, I will just add that you said as far as 50 miles of biking, which is very impressive for those who maybe are not as familiar with cycling. So kudos.
Downhill.
Downhill. Okay. All right. All downhill. Well, listen, we have one more. We have another question coming in from a LinkedIn user as well. So I've put it up on the screen, but I'll read it out too. How do you make employees feel comfortable discussing their mental health and decrease the feeling that their mental state may be used against them as it relates to their employment or promotional opportunities? And this, I think, goes back to the idea of, how do you create this environment where, it can't be held against an employee.
Right. Well, the first thing is we encourage the discussion. We have the discussions openly. We have multiple forums with our external medical partner, Premise Health, who provides sessions on mental health. So when we are so vocal and prominent internally as a company in having these discussions, that sort of lowers the concern that some might have in terms of not feeling free to express it. So we encourage it, we invite it, we facilitate it, and I say we actually celebrate it from the perspective of, we know it's not easy for those discussions to be had. We know it's not easy for people to come forward, and we're thankful when it occurs.
And in that scenario too, it might be the voice of one employee who steps forward with their expressed concern that ultimately ends up benefiting, a larger population of employees as well.
Indeed.
Well, Sean, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon for this conversation. Again, I appreciate your expertise and also you just sort of sharing a little bit about what you've also been doing to take care of your own mental well-being during this time. So thank you for joining us. For anyone who would like to learn a little bit more about our Workforce Executive Council, you can see here as I am just pulling it up, there is an opportunity for you to join on CNBC.com. I'm just tossing up the banner now. Excellent. So you can apply there today to become a member of the CNBC Workforce Executive Council, cnbccouncils.com/WEC/WEC. You can also follow us on LinkedIn for news updates and more conversations like this one today with Sean. So Sean, thank you again for joining me. I appreciate it.
I would like to say thank you to you and CNBC for creating this forum. It's very instructive and it's invaluable for the HR community. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that note. Take care and have a great rest of your day.